Hi, Neerothambi Pillay from Investment Rise here. And in this video, I want to talk about, what I see happening in the Sydney market going forwards. If you've been following the reports right now, you're starting to see that auction clearance rates are starting to drop. We're having months now of next to no growth in Sydney. So what's going to happen? More importantly, why are we seeing the change? I mean, the first 3 months of 2017, Sydney market was still going great. So what's happened as of March? Why April, May are we seeing these slowdowns? Well, if this was, a free market and buyers and sellers were the only ones determining prices and everything else, we'd be fine. But unfortunately, we don't have that exactly. You see, the cooling in the Sydney market is essentially being driven by the government via APRA and the banks. So if I was to look at the three major reasons why I'm seeing the Sydney market cool, it's these three. Number one, banks are raising rates independent of the Reserve Bank. I sort of cautioned everyone about this back in December of 2016, and it's certainly happening now more and more so. So that's making property and loans even less affordable, and so hence people not paying the prices that they were. Number two, banks are looking to lend less. So how are they doing that? Well, just in the last 4 weeks, I've seen many lenders now completely remove their 90% interest-only loan product to investors. So that means as an investor, you only got two choices. If you want 90%, you're going to have to pay principal interest, which is going to hurt your cash flow, or you've got to limit your borrowing to only 80%. So that means if you were going to buy a property at, say, $600,000, rather than just having 60 grand for a deposit plus costs, you now have to come up with $120,000 plus costs. And not everyone's got that extra money lying around. So banks are looking to lend less to deliberately cool the market. But the third thing, and this one's probably the scariest of all, is I'm seeing banks undervalue property. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I've seen people who bought apartments, and I'm primarily seeing in the apartment market right now, apartment market, say a year or 2 years ago, for example, a prospective buyer bought an apartment in Sydney or Western Sydney for about $770,000 a couple of years ago. He then wanted to use some of the equity in his property, or the equity he thought he had, to revalue, and he wanted my help to buy an investment property. But the problem was that when I asked him to get his bank to revalue the property to see what equity he had, he was shocked to see that the same bank that valued his property at $770,000 when he bought it 2 years ago now valued it at only $700,000. Yep, that's a drop of $70,000. Now, his property hasn't dropped $70,000 in the open market. He could probably get pretty close to what he paid for it, if not even a little bit more. But banks, I'm seeing them more and more looking to undervalue property in an attempt to lend less and lower their exposure primarily to the apartment market. Yes, to houses, but certainly not so much. We've also then got the two unknown factors. Number one, this impending bank levy that the federal government has put on them. What is that going to do? Are banks going to pass that on to customers in the form of high interest rates, even though the government's saying they shouldn't? And of course, we've got this rapidly oncoming oversupply in the apartment market, especially in sort of areas like Parramatta or Penrith, and even in the northwest of Sydney. So these factors, they're not driven by the open market. It's not as if buyers have all of a sudden gone away. No, it's bank, it's government interference, I guess, causing the Sydney market to cool. What do you think is going to happen in the Sydney market, primarily in the apartments? Do you see the cooling continuing? Do you think that the market's going to bounce back once everyone accepts these changes? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments fields below, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye for now.